Hi, welcome to Crafts by Doti. We are so glad to have you here. If it's your first time being here, feel welcomed. We do have new videos every Tuesday on DIYs and woodwork projects. If this fits your liking, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on our weekly uploads. On today's project, we will be making a modern mahogany bed with an MDF panel headboard. For this project, we will need one sheet of MDF board, 3x2 and 12x1 pieces of mahogany. To start off the project, we will use a circular saw to cut the MDF board into the required size of the headboard. We will then plane and sand down the 3x2 4 pieces of mahogany. Once done with planing and sanding down the pieces, we are going to place them on the miter saw and cut the edges at an angle of 45 degrees. We are still working on the 3x2s and we are going to measure 1 inch from the edge and place a mark. We then set our router depth to the 1 inch mark. For our next step, we will pick a waste piece of MDF board and mark its center. We then align it with the center of our 3x2 and place marks on the side of the waste piece of MDF board. This will help us determine the width of the groove. Earlier on, we did set our router gauge at a depth of 1 inch, so now we go ahead and create the groove. We did realize that our 3x2s were a bit longer, so we are resizing them. Once we are done with the headboard frame pieces, we will dry fit them and see whether they will fit perfectly. As you can see, all the pieces did fit quite perfectly, and what we are going to do next is to secure all these pieces to the headboard. We'll start by adding glue to all the 4 grooves and then insert the board in between. We then use the clamp to hold the pieces together and reinforced using 3-inch screws. We are pretty done with our first step, which was to create our headboard. Our next step involves planing down the 12x1 pieces of mahogany. For our second part of the project, we will create the footboard and the rails. We kicked it off by planing the 12x1 pieces. We then took one piece of the 12x1 and trimmed it off using the miter saw to get our 5-foot footboard. We took the excess wood from our footboard and sliced it into 4 2x1 inch pieces. From the 4 pieces, we picked 2 and rounded their edges using a hand plane. We attached the remaining 2 pieces on the footboard, which will act as support for the rails. We did apply wood glue and used 1.5 inch screws to hold these 2 pieces firmly on the edge of our footboard. Next, we will attach the 2 pieces which had earlier on rounded off their edges on the lower side to act as feet for our footboard. We are now working on the bedside rails. We measured 1 inch mark from the edge and squared it all around. We then measured 3 inch from the edges of the longer side, then used a square to draw a straight line. We marked the center of the 12 by 1 piece and drilled through to create a hole for the bolts. We repeated this process to all the 4 sides. To create the tenons on the rails, we placed 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch marks from the edges. We used a jigsaw to cut off the 1/2 inch marks. Then for the 1/4 inch marks we used a router. So we now have tenons on both sides of the rails. Since we are using a 12 by 1 inch piece of wood, the 2 by 1 pieces which we attached came in handy in creating the mortise. We placed marks as we did on the tenon and created a groove for the mortise. We did the same to the headboard. To round off the edges of the tenon, we used a rough file. We are still working on the rails and we used a router to create holes where the bolts will meet the nuts. We dry fitted the rail to the footboard through the joints and marked points where we will drill a hole where the 6-inch bolt will go in. Our 2 main parts of the bed are now done. For the third part of our project, we used the remaining piece of MDF board and divided it into 20 pieces measuring 9 by 9/4 inches, and we did this using a circular saw and a table saw. On the router, we attached a round over bit and used it to round off the edges of each of the 20 pieces of the MDF panels. We did this on the front face of the panels. We laid the 20 pieces on the headboard and placed them 2 inches apart. We used 1-inch nails and wood glue to attach all the pieces on the headboard. We also ripped off a 2-inch strip of wood, which really helped us in maintaining a 2-inch spacing in between the MDF panels. We then used the same round over bit to round off the sharp edges. Rounded edges really give a project a softer and smooth look. We took our orbit sander and sanded the entire bed before applying the stain. For the final finish of our bed, we did apply 2 coats of water-based stain. Left it to dry, then applied a coat of sanding sealer. We filled all the spaces left on top of the nails with our DIY filler. On the following day, we did sand off the excess filler and did 1 coat of stain to create uniformity on the place which we could have over sanded. We then added 2 more coats of sanding sealer, slightly sanding in between the coats. We later applied 4 coats of clear Vanish. We used a sponge on the last coat of Vanish to give our bed a shiny look. We later on added our bedding rails and the bed is good to go. That's it for today's project. In case you have any inquiries, please do email us or inbox us on the pages linked below. Thanks for clicking into Crafts by Doti and sticking by this growing family. Stay safe until we meet next time. See you!